7 o'clock in Gardner, Kansas. There we go. Sorry. Wake up. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. There's our city attorney. Before we get started tonight, I did want to read into record a letter I received from Councilman Van Potter. Mayor Winters, City Council staff, and citizens of Gardner, it is with sadness that I notify you that my time representing the people of Gardner and my time in this great city has been unexpectedly and extremely truncated, and I must tender my resignation from service effective immediately. My wife and I have been presented a business opportunity out of the area that we have decided to take advantage of. We moved to Gardner because we like the community. This is our adopted hometown, which is why I wanted to be involved in our city's business, to protect the best of our town and promote what could make it better for everyone who lives here. Gardner is one of the most friendly and welcoming communities I've lived in, which is why our decision to move on is one of the most difficult we've been faced with. We love our home and everything Gardner has to offer. My short time working with city staff has been shockingly pleasant. Every encounter I've had with anyone in any department has been fantastic. The passion to serve is evident in everyone and has always been done in a friendly and kind manner. Before getting on the council, I heard horror stories from neighbors about past city council infighting that made it sound like I was walking into the OK Corral. I learned very quickly that the reality today is quite different. I've watched the interactions between members be very respectful and considerate of opposing viewpoints. It's evident to me that regardless of each member's convictions, they originate in a sincere desire to serve the best interests of the citizens of this great city. As Sarah and I prepare this new chapter of our lives, our memories of our time here are fond and will be with us forever. My prayers for this community will continue, and I look forward to watching the growth and development from a bit of a distance. With all sincerity, Eric Van Potter. So we are one short this evening. We do thank him for his time on the council, and we certainly understand things change.
Question. With the reading of that in the record per the governing body rules of procedure, that starts the process of getting advertising the opening, gathering the applications. Okay, so
I will send a notice to the newspaper this week, but unfortunately we missed publication for this week, so it won't publish until next Tuesday for the first time. It must publish 2 weeks in a row.
yes.
And I'll publish it on the website and social media pages as well for those 2 weeks.
So we'll accept applications until
I'll have to look at
Tuesday.
the calendars, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the candidates from the last interview process will also be able to be
Great.
considered as well. We keep those on record for a year.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We have no presentations, no public hearings. Move on to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. No profanity, personal attacks. There is a 5-minute time limit. Clock on your left. That being said, please come forward.
Dennis Watson, 670 South Mulberry, Gardner. I'd like to speak as a representative of a group of people that were walking and praying in the city this evening. And I'd like to make a statement. We, as friends and citizens of Gardner, Kansas, believe, pray, and proclaim that God loves Gardner. We believe He has a plan and a purpose for this city. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit make up the Trinity. They are family and community within themselves. They created the idea of family and created it to be the basis of a successful society. They also created government to lead and serve this society. Therefore, we are praying for the well-being, prosperity, and safety of Gardner. We pray for the administration, for those who work to maintain all aspects of this city. We pray also for those who bravely serve, protect us every day. We pray for the schools, churches, and businesses of Gardner. We proclaim Gardner to be a thriving and safe place to live and raise strong, functioning families. Gardner has a hope and a future as a hub and destination point, and will welcome and serve a flourishing population with a thriving business, education, and church communities. We pray peace, harmony, and unity over Gardner, a city on a hill filled with truth, light, and justice. Amen.
Thank you, Janice.
I present you a copy of this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
Hello, I'm Paula Athey, 29070 West 184th Street. And I want to say first thanks to Parks and Rec, especially Brittany. That glamp out was fabulous. I'm finally catching up on my sleep because we're not really campers, but that's okay. Also, big thanks for the headphones. My son is autistic. He's 10 years old, and he was very thankful to have his headphones so he could help celebrate the fireworks portion of the 4th of July with the rest of the neighborhood. Last month we were here, one of my colleagues and I, to talk about the city parks. Just some history, my son's autism. When he was a toddler, I can think of 3 very vivid situations. You can sprint from Celebration Park all the way to Pioneer Ridge's back door if you need to. You can also run from Cornerstone Park through the fairgrounds if you need to. And from Veterans Park, you can sprint directly towards a main road, which scares your mom too much. So then you stop going to parks for a while until you get old enough and have enough self-control to do that. So we had started the conversation that the city parks may not be adaptive or well-equipped for some of our kiddos with special needs. And might have gotten a shout out on CFG. I work at the school district. I know how everybody loves getting their names posted on CFG, but it does raise some accountability. Just a couple things there that I want to put out, thoughts that I had as a parent and as an educator in the district for a long time. When this comes hopefully to fruition and more to different committees' topics, a lot of people said, well, this is a new topic. You just brought this up and now you're upset that it's not getting fixed immediately. Well, sorry, but there have been disabled people as far back as we can go. So it's not a new topic, and there were surveys in 2017 done that brought it to light. There are some notes on minutes from the Parks and Rec Committee where Jason Bruce had even brought up that the master plan for parks hadn't been redone since 2009, and that minutes was in 2018. In February of 2022, there was a updated agenda for Parks and Rec that had inclusive playgrounds as one of the topics. Unfortunately, I couldn't access any minutes for that meeting yet. Also, when people are like, this is new, this just came up, our school district has over 1,000 students who receive special education services. Now, again, that's anywhere from maybe your child can't say the R sound to your child's gifted. But we need to remember that just because they're not in a wheelchair or they are on crutches or they have a physical disability does not mean there's a disability there, which is becoming more and more frequent in our populations. The other comment that came up several times was, oh, well, why don't the families do it? And why don't they raise money? And why don't they apply for grants? Which I have not found. I'm part of Gardner Gold Special Olympics, and I've not found a family yet that isn't willing to pitch in and help. But there's a Parks and Rec committee. There's an accessibility committee. You have 14 Parks and Rec employees. So why all of a sudden is it on the families to get this done? I believe the city has their own grant writing person. So I'm all for, I will do everything I can to help this along, but you're talking to families who are sometimes just exhausted trying to keep their kid alive some days. So for them to have to then plan a neighborhood park, which wasn't asked of any of the other families in town, is a little challenging again. really, that's all I have to say. I will say also, as I kind of did some research, I know transparency is a word that's been thrown in the community in many different avenues. And I will say just a note that a lot of the website documents are missing, or they're very old, or they're not updated. So it was very hard to find what is the plan for the parks? What is the history of the parks? So any of that could be done just to make it where the families can see and really understand where we've been and where we're going towards would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And I will say your son did a great job on
My name is Richard Lawrence, 730 North Walnut Street. I'm a disabled veteran. I don't speak for myself, only for my fellow veterans in this city, also other pet owners. We just went through a major holiday, July 4th, and I saw that fireworks weren't supposed to be after 11 o'clock at night. For us people who have pets, when fireworks are going off at 1:45 in the morning, it's very difficult for any pet owner to allow their pet to be relieved. As soon as you take it to the door, a firework goes off. And as a veteran, I'm a disabled veteran, but I don't have PTSD. But I do speak for my veterans that do. I've been in war myself. And anytime, I spent time in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, when during July 4th I had to eat s'mores and blow bubbles, because we had fireworks going around us. So this is just a reminder of battle. A cul-de-sac close to me is a battle zone on July 4th, every July 4th. Veterans do not need a reminder of war that severe. I appeal to you to either lower the hours or eliminate totally any observance of fireworks. Olathe has done away with it. Yes, people do it illegally. But if we can't, and nothing against police because you can't be everywhere to enforce it, but somehow people have to be realistic and make sure that pet owners, veterans who have PTSD are safe and be able to do life as normal. Please, I would encourage you, either lower the hours or completely do away with fireworks in future coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Hi, my name is Samantha Brandt, 32271 West 165th Street. Thanks. Hi, everyone. I spoke June 21st. I did miss the last meeting, but I'm coming tonight to an agenda that I thought would have some updates on the parks. Per the minutes on the June 21st, that there would be more information this month. And there has not been any information updated, nor do I see this on the agenda. So I'm coming to ask, who would that be that I would go to for more answers on this park situation?
Generally, we can answer the questions during council updates.
Great. Okay. So let's just make note that per the minutes, there was supposed to be an update, and there is not. I've gone back through just doing some research on the city's website because I really wanted to understand why a survey was done about accessibility in 2017, and I wanted to understand what had happened with that information. So I went back and I pulled 2018's goals and objectives. There was not one goal or objective or accomplishment off of the 2017 survey, which that 2017 survey was our citizens speaking That was our citizens who filled that survey out and said that they believed there needed to be more accessibility in parks and things of that nature. So I would have thought that in 2018 we may make that a goal. It was not. However, what was made goals are introducing new memberships at the Aquatic Center, adding signature special events to current special event lineups, increase out-of-town visitation through tournaments and special events. Some of the accomplishments were setting a record participation in youth soccer, introducing the Grand Slam Beer and Wine Fest, and swim lessons increasing. Those are just a few. I skipped 2019 and 20 because, as we all know, COVID, and we'd all deserve a little grace during that time. So I went to 21 and 22, figuring that again, in 2017, this is what our citizens said, so surely it would be a goal by now. The goals are to construct a trail at Quo Meadows, resurface the South Center Trail, implement new youth and adult programs to enhance the quality of life for Gardner residents. The quality of life for Gardner residents would be enhanced by a park that they could all play at beside each other. Unfortunately, that was not brought forth once again. So the only ADA or accessibility goal or accomplishment that I see is the constructed new ADA parking at the Gardner Lake Shelter. That's not a park that everyone can go play at, and we can do better. We can do better as citizens. We can do better as a city, listening to our citizens. Gardner Gold puts on a fabulous slew of events for our children who are extraordinary. Maybe not neurotypical, maybe not physically typical. But unfortunately, my daughter, not being physically typical, is not able to go to those events because she isn't able to play next to the other children. I'm just coming forth as a citizen again, and I'm going to keep coming forth every chance I get. Our children deserve to play next to each other. Someone has to make this a priority from 2017 on. This is not new. This needs to happen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brand.
Thank you, Samantha.
No other public comments. We'll move on to consent agenda. Is a council member who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? I have a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion, Deaton. Second, Shute, that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Consent agenda passes. Nothing on planning and zoning consent agenda. Moving on to committee recommendations. Committee recommendations number 1, consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from R1 and RP3 district to RP4 district and approving the associated preliminary development plan and preliminary plot.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item was heard by the Planning Commission on June 27th of 2022. At that session, a public hearing was held, and there were several people who did speak to the item. I'll try to recap that. Very quickly, this is for a duplex development on approximately 25 acres of land south of the St. John's Highlands subdivision. It's in between the airport area and St. John's. It's adjacent to the Prairie Brook Villas development, which would be to the east, and then also the enclave to Prairie Brook that is south of this. As part of that, there are 62 lots proposed, which would equate to 124 units, all duplexes. The reason for the RP4 request is that several of the lots are under the 10,000 square foot threshold that we have for our RP2 district. Because they are down to about 8,700 on the smaller lots, 8,700 square feet, they need the RP4 zoning, which would allow lots to get down to 6,000 square feet. As part of the development, though, it's my understanding the smallest of the lots are around 8,700 square feet. This is a situation, again, where we had people speaking to it, and I'm going to highlight this for a second, with concerns about the RP4 district, because the R4 district does allow for higher densities. Again, the development plan that's associated with this would limit the development to these duplexes as proposed within the development plan. So I wanted to make sure of that. As I mentioned before, there were several people who did speak out at the meeting. Primary concerns had to do with traffic and some of the open and green space in the area as part of that discussion. The applicant has requested 4 deviations as part of its application. These are primarily related to frontage design, the standards that we have for the frontages, and also garage limits associated with the structure types. Planning Commission has recommended approval with 2 conditions, which are in your summary report, and I stand ready for any questions.
Any public comments, questions? Counsel.
Dave,
Yep.
not necessarily specific to this development, but tied in with it, because of the green space that would be eliminated, do we have already on the books a plan for another neighborhood park or something in that vicinity? Because we have a lot of units there without a park, which I know we're talking about the inclusive ones, but just in general.
Right.
Another park.
So what the development incorporates is a trail area with some open space associated with it. It's not a formal public park in the sense of a city park. So it's not dedicated as city parkland, but it is open space. There's a trail that'll run through that development that is accessible to the public, but there's no facilities planned in the sense of a playground or any other development that would be open to the public and would be under the city's auspices there. The intent of the trail, though, is to attach eventually to the Kill Creek Trail. Yeah.
Wasn't there a park plan for that area at
I'm
some
gonna-
point within the last 10 years?
I'm going to defer that to the Parks Director.
I thought there was.
I think that was to be revamped at the airport, right? Was at least a thought that was going out there before.
I know there was a, I think a parcel that was cut out for a potential neighborhood park. But again, that would have occurred with the 09.
Gotcha. It was a while ago. I do remember.
Right. Kind of to dovetail on that, there was a tract that is part of this development request. It was part of St. John's Highland, which had a narrow strip of about 10 or 15 feet on the back side of a number of residences that we think was intended for a trail, and then had an open area. I forget the road crossing, but it's just a small open parcel that was there. As part of this development, we worked with Public Works and also talked to Parks Department. There's an exchange of land going on to make sure our RPZ, the runway protection zone, is completely left open for the airport operation. So there was kind of a swap of allowing development of that parcel in exchange for protecting the RPZ at the end of the runway.
And even if we zone it, the 4, they are marrying the duplexes, and if
Correct.
they divorce the duplexes, they have to come back and we have to approve that separately.
Yeah. So the associated preliminary development plan and plat are part of this process. Once that's approved, they will come back with us for a final plan. That final plan has to be found to be substantially the same as what is in the preliminary development plan. If it is not, it has to come back to the Planning Commission as a revised preliminary plan. So anything that starts deviating from this in a substantial way is required to have another public hearing.
Could we have Mika put what he just said out? Because I think a lot of people don't know the difference between R and RP.
Correct.
Well, and that's why I just wanted to clarify, I read it, I've heard it, let's make it very clear that they can't come in and just change and be like, oh, this is what we're doing now.
And I will tell you that I've been looking at some revisions to the land development code also to clean up language, because it is confusing when you look at the title that goes with RP4 and it says mixed density residential. This is not mixed density, this is duplex, but because of the configuration of the lots and the lot sizes, it demands that it be in that RP4 district. And so that's what drives it into that. So our labeling of some of our districts can be a little bit frightening, because people look at that and they go, oh gosh, that could allow apartments, that could allow this, that could allow all these things. But again, the regulatory plan, the preliminary development plan, and the final plan that's associated with this is all that would be approved, and anything that changes substantially, again, would have to come back through the public hearing process as a revised plan.
I agree with Casey, get that out there. I do think though, I was at the planning commission meeting, and I do think it was very well explained during the meeting, and I don't know that there are any of the residents that came, because I think we did a great job at the planning commission level and explained it. But it wouldn't hurt to, for everybody that wasn't at the meeting and that wouldn't know what those initials mean.
All right. Any further comment, questions? Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot. That we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2735, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas.
Councilmember Deaton? Yes. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Winters?
Yes. Committee recommendation number 1 passes. Dave, you're up again. Committee recommendation number 2, consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from R1 district to RP2 district and approving the associated preliminary development plan for a property at Gardner Lake.
And this is a very unusual situation. Again, it involves a property in the Gardner Lake area that is actually in the city limits. We have very few of those properties. There's only a handful, I think less than 10 properties that are actually in the city limits, but yet adjacent to the lake or in that lake development area. As you may have seen with a number of properties out there, there have been situations where people have been doing additions and tear downs and rebuilds and things like that. And we have on this particular property a family who had originally approached staff with the desire to do some modifications to their home. They were originally going to be applying for a variance from the code restrictions from the R1 district. The unique situation here with the lake properties are that most of those properties do not meet any of the requirements for most of our zoning districts. And so the problem becomes, how do you go about improving your property when you're in a non-conforming situation? So with that in mind, we asked that the applicant go ahead and pursue a planned district again, which did cause some concern. We did have a couple people at the meeting to hear about this because they were a little concerned about the RP2 designation. The RP2 designation is primarily there because of the lot size that we're dealing with and some of the configurations that we had to handle there. The proposed use is still single-family residential, but again, to get the setbacks that they needed on especially the side yards reduced to the level that a house could be rebuilt in that location, the RP2 district was recommended and a preliminary plot plan was provided by the applicant as part of the request to rezone. That will serve as essentially a preliminary development plan at that point in time. The final development plan will be their plot plan that they submit for their building application at that point. So it's a little bit different because it's a single family home versus more of a duplex or some other development that we're dealing with. In general though, the RP2 district is the closest fit we have. They still needed to request several deviations in order to make this work. We have some frontage elements that are in question here primarily because of lot depth and the fact that we own property, but it's not necessarily a public road per se that's in front of the house, so it's hard to determine how do we utilize those frontage characteristics in this particular case. So they have requested 4 deviations regarding the frontage design and the garage limits for the property. I did go over the fact that we did have public that had some concern, but again, we tried to explain that at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item with the deviations, and staff stands ready for any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Any public comment? Council
there's some of those limitations, I guess, in our existing code, or rather, the properties out of the lake kind of clash together, kind of putting a square peg in a round hole here. Are we gonna
Yeah, we are. The real fix at some point is to create a zoning district specifically for the lake properties that are in the city. That's the ultimate fix. But again, for this particular property owner, they're in a hurry to make some of these corrections. Some of them have to do with accessibility of the home as their life is changing. And so they wanted to go about this. And again, with the addition, they had some thoughts on that. But I think when they saw the expenses of the addition and some of the things they'd have to go through, it was suggested by their contractor that they look at a brand new build here.
raise and rebuild?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion Dean, second Baldwin. That we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2736, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Mayor Winters,
Yes. Committee recommendation number 2 passes. No old business, moving on to new business. New business item number 1, consider an ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $11,425,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2022A, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal and interest on the bonds as they become due. Finance Director Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. At the June 21st, 2022 meeting, the governing body approved Resolution 2107, authorizing the offer for sale of General Obligation Bond Series 22A and General Obligation Temporary Notes Series 2022B. Senior Municipal Advisor Bruce Kimmel of Ellers is here tonight and has prepared a presentation for you on the results of the debt sale. Bruce?
Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Can you switch over to the power? Great, thank you. Oh, yeah. Great, thank you. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Bruce Kimmel. It's nice to be back with you. It's been a little while. I brought the really hot weather from Minnesota down here today. I think it got over 100 degrees up there today. But I'm very glad to share these very positive sale results for your 2022A bond issue and 2022B note issue. I just have a few highlights to share with you, and please stop me along the way if you have any questions. So from the pre-sale report, you might recall that there were actually 6 purposes in the bond issue. There were the 2 Tuscan Farms benefit districts, each with a repayment term of 20 years. There are the 2 Prairie Trace-related infrastructure projects, one for water, one for sewer improvements with a 15-year repayment. That's pretty typical for city utility bonds. And then 2 road financings for Waverly Road and Main Street, which I got to enjoy this evening coming over to City Hall, and those both have 10-year repayments. So overall, the whole bond goes 20 years, but it's a little bit front-loaded due to the shorter terms of the road and the sewer and water projects. And I'll just note that your staff is really good at seeing how short you can reasonably run these debt services. Mr. Wolf and Ms. Tornadin really look carefully at all of the obligations that you have. They forecast what's expected in terms of cash flows, and we had some really good discussions about the water and sewer projects in particular, and what was reasonably prudent for that term, but being as aggressive as possible. So really want to give credit to your staff to not just sort of saying, yeah, we'll do 20 years or just sort of punching it in, but looking very carefully at your ability to repay each of these purposes over time. So we received 4 bids on your behalf. Baird, RW Baird was the best bid at 3.12%. TIC, it's a little bit higher first digit than you've been seeing recently, probably for over the last 10 years, but we do seem to be in a new era. And the cover bid was only 1/3 of 1 basis point higher than the Baird bid, so it was extremely aggressive. In decimal points, that's 0.003%. That was the spread between first and second place. When we did the pre-sale numbers, because we had been seeing such rapid inflation in interest rates over the spring, we did estimate 3.77%. And fortunately, over the last month or so, rates have really tapered off. They're still at an elevated level compared to where they were at the beginning of the year. But we've actually seen rates come down a little bit too, and that's been to the city's benefit on today's sale. So I was really, really pleased to see this low 3% range bid for a 20-year bond. And also, Baird's bid, their proposal had quite a large premium, and so we were able to reduce the bond size by almost $1.1 million and still achieve the funding that you needed for all of the purposes listed above. Also, because of the overall lower interest cost or borrowing cost for the financing, you'll be saving over $750,000 in debt service as opposed to what we had projected. So really strong results and obviously very aggressive bidding, as is normal for your bonds and for most Kansas bonds. There's just still not enough supply to meet demand in the market. Then on the B notes, you may recall from the pre-sale also that this is a one-year extension of the temporary financing for Hilltop Ridge, those two benefit districts. So we are looking to extend that till October of this next year. We received 5 bids on the city's behalf for that issue. Commerce Bank was the best at 2.29%. And because of the volatility on the short end of the yield curve, we had really padded that one, and so it was great to see that this bid result came in 110 basis points lower than what we had been projecting. But if I had shown you results back at the pre-sale time, we were seeing results all over the board for bonds only 1 year out, in part because the market really looks at treasuries for that short-term paper, and as you may know, treasury yields were bouncing all over the place as well. One nice thing about the Commerce Bank bid as well is that they didn't take all of the discount allowance that we had put in there as basically part of their potential compensation. And so we were able to reduce the par amount of that bond or that note by $15,000. And you'll see the final par amount of the notes at $1,385,000. And I should note also back on the bonds, the final amount that you'll see in the ordinance and resolution is $11,425,000. So then finally, we had a very good call with S&P as part of this bond issuance process. And as before, your AA- rating was affirmed with flying colors with a stable outlook as well. And you really, again, received very strong marks in almost all categories, and especially the categories that you yourself can control. So budgetary management and flexibility, financial management, reserve funds, not service funds, sorry about that, reserve funds, were all very well regarded. The one aspect that is still sort of causing S&P to take a wait-and-see approach is your ongoing growth in your economy. Not that anything about the economy is bad, it's very good, as you know from sales tax results and other metrics. They just want to see a little bit more sustained growth in your economy and income levels before they take you the next notch up to AA. But you're really tracking it right along. I will also note that S&P understands that you have a somewhat elevated debt profile, but they also understand that you are a rapidly growing community. And so that's not a black mark. It's just something that they know you're working with, and they also recognize that a lot of your debt is paid with utility revenues as opposed to property taxes, which is a big differentiator for them as well. So overall, it was a very positive conversation. I think Mr. Wolf and I were definitely thinking that the city is a candidate for an upgrade, and we'll continue to push for that, but they're just taking a little bit more of a wait-and-see approach, which I also can understand given that we may be on the cusp of a recession. So all things together, I thought it was a good result. And then finally, this is a little known rating, but they do have a rating for temporary notes, and that's called SP+. That's their highest rating for a temporary note or financing, and that was assigned to the 2022B notes. So why don't I stop there and see if you have any questions, and then I would ask you to take up about 3 ordinances and resolutions, and bond counsel Tyler Ellsworth is here try to answer any questions that you might have, including, you know, subsection 2D, Romanet 5. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's good news. Do we have any public comments? Council, maybe if you have questions about any of the three, do them all at once.
I was gonna ask a point of order, if, in the purpose of brevity, just kind of combine these in just a list of ordinances, if we don't have any public comments, I don't think we would, but, and then we can just pass. I love the fact that Bruce comes in when he's got good news. I've never seen you appear where you haven't had just amazing news for us, and I just want to give
I was at the airport just waiting
Yeah.
to get on the jetway, right?
I just wanted to give you, and I've worked with you for several years, as have other members of the council. I just want to give you kudos, your team as well as the team in the city. You always are working towards our best interests, and you always hit it out of the park every single time. So I just wanted to give you that affirmation. So.
Thank you, and I know
Yep.
Tyler is proud to hear that as well. And you do really have a great team. Once again, the S&P analysts specifically remarked on the level of preparation that Matt and Nancy put into the rating report or rating call in that process, and how much he wishes every issuer were as prepared as the city of Gardner, because it makes their life very, very easy.
We just got that ratings increase.
I know, right? Yeah, we'll keep reminding him of that. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? No? All right, then we will run through these. Is there a motion for new business item number 1?
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot. We adopt ordinance number 2737, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $11,425,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2022A of the City of Gardner, Kansas, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest of the on the bonds as they become due.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
New business item number 1 passes. New business item number 2, consider adopting a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing delivery of $11,425,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2022A. Is there a motion? Is there a
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin. Of course. That we adopt resolution number 2109, a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $11,425,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2022A of the City of Gardner, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
New business item number 2 passes. New business item number 3, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of $1,385,000 principal amount of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2022B, for the purpose of temporarily financing the cost of certain internal improvements.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin. That we adopt resolution number 2110, a resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of $1,385,000 principal amount of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2022B of the City of Gardner, Kansas, for the purpose of temporary financing the cost of certain internal improvements.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
New business item number 3 passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, new business item number 4, consider adopting an ordinance amending chapter 13.40 of the Gardner Municipal Code relating to wastewater rates. Amy Foster.
Thanks. Everyone might call me Bruce. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I come before you to ask for your consideration in adopting an ordinance revising Chapter 13.40 of the Gardner Municipal Code to establish new classes of wastewater customers and their pertaining rates. So with the new development east of I-35, it has created new classes of customers because the city is providing the wastewater service but not the water. Our rate classes now for wastewater are off of water consumption. And so we've worked on coming up with a way to bill the customers that are going to be out there without the water data. We could potentially come back to you at a later date once it's fully developed to see if it's fiscally responsible to work with Water One to provide us that water data. Right now, based on the number of the customers that are out there and what it would cost to set that up, seemed a little extensive to pass it on to the customers. So I worked through our current residents of Gardner, looked at a monthly wastewater consumption, and came up with what the average looks like for a winter average, which we consider true water usage equaling sewer usage, and it comes out to 5,000 gallons. So I took that 5,000 gallons plus a monthly service charge as what we would bill in our current customers, and come up with a flat rate for our residential wastewater users in the amount of $57.63 per month. So if that was to pass, how that would look on their bills is they would have a monthly bill that showed their electric and then a wastewater charge of the $57.63. Then we also looked at multifamily apartment complexes, because these people would never create their own winter average like the customers we have now. And so we actually took the apartment complexes that we have in town and broke them out on a monthly basis and came up with their average usage, and that come to 2,000 gallons. We've also reached out, Director Garcia reached out to find out that our apartment complexes going in out there will have one water meter per building. And so we came up with a per unit flat rate for them of $13.73 for the service charge, and then 2,000 gallons per unit. So that would be $31.29 per unit. And again, in the future, we feel like there might be a time where it would be more beneficial to get that water data and come back to you. But at this time, we did feel like it was more responsible to bill a flat rate and bring it to you that way. Also, something else that we are looking at is coming back to you with a commercial/industrial rate based on small, medium, and large. That was a little bit more math. And so I have the data sheets that are quite extensive for our local or our current commercial customers to come up with what that average would look like, to come up with a flat rate. So we should be bringing that to you in the near future, but we do have 3 new customers that have hooked up to our wastewater system out there. So we felt like we needed to get moving on that so we could start billing those wastewater charges.
Thank you, Amy. Is there any public comment? Counsel, questions, comments?
I have one question. How are we defining multifamily? Is it apartments only? Would it include duplexes, townhomes?
It's apartments only.
Okay, so then for duplexes, townhomes, and single-family homes would be the residential wastewater?
As long as they have a single meter, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I think it's clever the way that this was calculated, and I like the idea of revisiting in the future so that we don't have one customer class subsidizing another after a year or 2 or 3 of data. So yeah, this is good for now, and hopefully any changes are minor.
Is from the standpoint of, have you had preliminary discussions with Water One in terms of sharing that data?
Yes. Yes, we
okay,
have.
and they've done it with other, I'm sure they've done it with other city utilities. Are they just saying they're going to charge you a lot of money per customer to do that?
For us to automate the system, it's at $617 a rate. So every month when we got a commercial, it could be potentially $617. for us to get the data file. And then residential would actually bill separately. And so that could, and they only bill every other month. And so that could be another $617 every other month just to get the residential, because it's a per hour. And so they can't tell us exactly how long it will take us to get the data. I will tell you, I send 4 reports a month to Johnson County Wastewater. I would say by the time I run those reports and clean them up for them, I would say I spend probably an hour and a half in preparing those reports for them. And so when I did the math to figure out what it looked like if we built that data, I used an hourly rate. And so if we were to pass that cost on to them just at that, it seems like it would be pretty cumbersome to them.
Oh, yeah.
And so then they actually, to automate the system, which I think, as you guys know, utility billing has tried to automate a lot of things. And so one of the things that we've asked them to do was make it so that it would upload right in, just like our smart meter system does. Yeah. To create that was $76 an hour, and they estimate 120 hours to design that system. And so
that's all right. I work in consulting. Yeah. I do data conversion. So do you.
They're just
they're absolutely talking out of the
exactly.
Exactly.
Literally just have a nightly query. And
exactly.
So anyway, so that's when we talk about that, and we could go with a manual process and have our people manually enter that data. So we would get the data. They would actually have to take it out, put it into a format, and manually enter those reads, just like if we had a meter reader out there. And so we just felt like at this time again that there just wasn't. It wasn't the best time for us to do that.
I totally understand.
But
and I can tell you, based on our experience in private sector, working with data interfaces, that's ridiculous. So, yeah, we'll have to. Do we really want to negotiate with Water One on something like this?
Or future negotiations, consider that. Just throw that in there. See if we can't get that data.
Yeah.
File.
Okay. Thank you.
So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shoot, second Deaton. That we adopt ordinance number 2738, an ordinance of the City of Gardner, Kansas, amending chapter 13.40 of the Gardner Municipal Code relating to wastewater rates.
Councilmember Deaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2738 passes. Thank you, Amy. All right. Moving on to council updates. Let's start over to the right. Utilities Director Guns.
No.
Jason.
Yes, just an update on the inclusive play. So what staff is doing is we are reaching out to other agencies to see what that looks like with the existing parks. And we're all aware that we talked about bringing veterans and redoing that, the CIP, and a couple of our other older facilities. But what does it look like, right now to add some sort of inclusion in an existing park? So I'm part of a metro area directors distribution list and reaching out to see if anybody's done anything like that. I also met with the school district today to see what they have done within USD 231. So, once we get that information, we'll definitely share it with the group, including the Friday night. In addition to that, Paula kind of stole my thunder with the Glamp Out. We ended up having 77 participants. Well received, nothing but compliments. So it was a really good program. In addition to that day we had our first ever MLB pitch hit and run. We had 53 participants for that. And they actually got to do it on the high school baseball field. So participants thought that was really cool. So last thing I have is, speaking of USD 231, I've been meeting with them for a few months now, and we are working on an agreement. We're we're gonna have basketball back this winter.
Yeah.
So, working with their administrative staff, great conversation, looking at a great future partnership, and more information will come with that.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
Great.
Thank you for that. Community development?
Just a quick reminder that we have Planning Commission next Monday at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. We do have several items on there, and you should be receiving a link to that packet later this week. So just wanted to let you know that.
Public Works?
I'm sure you've already seen our pavement management program for the years has just started last week, along with all other construction going on. So just one more thing, a few more orange barrels for cutting.
Hey, Tim, how are things looking? I know that we had discussed about 6 months ago about revisiting pavement management, going on, doing an assessment of all the city streets that are covered under the program. Have we started that process yet, or is that something that we're going to be doing over the next 6 to 12 months? I know that we've got I think we're high time now to have that reevaluation.
Yeah, so we had hired a consultant to go out and collect data on all the city streets. And I think we're close to just about having touched every city street since the program started several years ago.
Yep.
Like 7, 8 years ago. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule on that. And once we get through where we've touched everybody, we will reassess and basically start a new program and decide, okay, where will we touch for the second time, and basically begin the process all over.
Yeah.
In which we also collected data on our arterial streets, which in the past we did not have a program, and we still don't really have a program for, but we're working on implementing a plan to annually touch our arterial streets as well.
That's great. And now that we've quote unquote caught up on some of the overdue maintenance, we should be able to have a better feel of exactly how much we're going to have to spend on a yearly basis to keep things the way they are.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the one thing we found through this process is that we had a lot more problems with curb.
Curb and gutter.
The
Yep.
intent was we were just going to be dealing with pavement. We got into it and found out, gosh, we're spending a lot of money on curb, and we'll be spending more. We're doing a little at a time.
Yep.
As we go, but I think what we're going to see in the near future is we'll be spending even more on curbs.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind everybody, we know it's already been hot, but it's supposed to be hotter the rest of this weekend. So I'd just like to ask everybody to, citizens, city employees, everybody just watch out for each other. Stay hydrated, keep an eye on each other, because it's going to be cooking.
And keep an eye on your pets too. Pets can suffer heat stroke just as much as people can. And some people tend to want to tie their dogs out. And you don't want to leave them there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nothing for me tonight. Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing from me.
So the council approved the contract tonight to terminate the agreement with Edgerton on Big Bull Creek. That payment will come within 120 days, and we will come back with recommendations on what we're going to do with funds, or what we should do. Typically, we would likely pay off the balance, but because the loan is at a much lower rate than what we can get now, there'll be options on how we move forward. So we'll come back with those recommendations. And then I know everybody got a call today on an issue, an in-house issue, and I spent 45 minutes on the phone and we're working through that. So I am handling that. So,
All right.
this is an update.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I was wondering if we could visit having a special meeting for interviewing new council member position, adding it to the meeting while we're going through the budget process seems adding a lot of extra time. And if we do a special meeting, then we can do it quicker instead of waiting, 2 weeks and another 2 weeks and get that done quicker. I don't know if anybody
think we did that with the last interview, didn't we?
No, we included it in the regular meeting, extended the regular meeting a lot, and we have to wait even longer.
Second.
There's no motion needed, Mr.
Sharon, how does that fall in with our current rules and what?
As long as we provide the 72 hours
Okay.
notice of a special meeting, we can hold a special meeting.
I got no issue with it.
If we look at the time of when the applications are due and then maybe set a special meeting for a day or two after that, then we can get the process rolling quicker, in my opinion.
I don't have a problem with it.
That was it.
Okay, I wrote a list this time. Any pickleball, Jason, any pickleball updates? I know you're gonna talk with the school.
Not yet.
Okay. I'll come back to this other one, but how are we doing on Highway 56? I know that the one intersection opened today with a stop sign. I've had a lot of people kind of asking, do we have a new updated time frame or?
We don't have an overall time frame done yet. Contractor's been dealing with some design issues that happened on the project, and the current one is the storm sewer just west of the Kentucky Fried Chicken in that area.
Okay.
But we made some progress with the contractor's cost today on that, and they should be starting removing that this week, so that'll help them get back on schedule and get those two eastbound lanes completed fairly soon. So now that we've got to that point, we've asked the contractor, hey, give us a new overall schedule for when we can expect projects. Certainly it's going to go into the next construction season at this point.
Okay. How is the trail update going along 175th to Kill Creek? I see that it's all flagged, but I didn't know if we have a start date for that.
Yeah, we've been working with Southern Star Gas to get an agreement to actually go in and work over their gas line. We finally got that last week. So again, now we're doing some changes to the plan based on that. We're having to kind of move the trail around a little bit to avoid the gas line as much as possible. So again, we're negotiating with the contractor. When we get that finalized, we'll be ready to go out and complete that.
I mean, do we realistically think it would be done before school starts? Or is that probably too, I think that would school start August 22nd or something.
Like closer to August 12th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't maybe have it up and ready for school.
Probably not, but it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, if we
It's
can
just
get
that
him out
it's
there
a-
within a week, it's not going to take him that long to do the work.
And then my last one was, and I sent some emails, I think, about this. I've had several people reach out to me about the Gardner Golf Course and what our future plans are, or could we get the ball rolling to talk about maybe phasing the back 9 holes, what other improvements we'd want to do. I know there's planning, future needs. We'd have to, if we wanted to add different amenities. There's also obviously talk about funding resources and how we would fund it. What I was told is, I'm not a golfer, so you guys can correct me if this is wrong. There's a lot of people that sign up and play the front 9, and they would like to actually play 18, and so if they would like to sign up and play another 9, but there's not enough slots because the front 9, so it's causing like a backlog, and it seems like there's people that would like to play it, so, and I know it's very early on, but I didn't know if we needed to get the ball rolling. It sounded like one of the people that asked me is a representative from the company that runs it, so it sounds like they maybe have some interest to get the ball rolling, so.
Well,
I said I would share.
Yeah, this goes back to a conversation that I had about a year and a half ago with the folks from Great Life, and I think they did mention it when we had our last little visit out there. They wanted to see how the traffic was and what the capacity was going to be and whether they were going to hit capacity. And obviously all that was up in the air because of COVID. Now they're seeing that they're to the point now. We have not gotten a formal request from anybody at Great Life to start working on a plan, have we?
No, after that meeting, Jason and I met with a couple of their
Yeah.
representatives to go over estimated costs
Yeah.
and how that might work, and cost recovery. It never went anywhere because of the cost
Yeah.
of
And I know that it's a huge project, but I said I would bring it up. And
Well, Jason will tell you that there's a huge following for disc golf on the back, and that it's used a lot. I mean, they've got groups that come out, hold tournaments, and do that
Okay.
stuff. So.
That's all on my list.
So I'll just keep that.
Perfect.
Todd and I had met with some of the golfers as well, and if costs are obviously going to be an issue, but if this needs to be brought up again, I feel like this is something we can kick down to the Parks Committee and let them start mulling it around, and then we can even see if there's anything to bring up here, or let it sit there for a little while longer, whatever.
And I think that some of the interest is, I know we have grander plans potentially, but if we were going to do the back nine, maybe it could be phased and the back nine could maybe be started, which then would start generating revenue, et cetera. So I would appreciate anything that we could investigate on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
No, that was all on my list.
All right. Council Vice President?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Samantha and her concerns. I want to make sure that when we get out of this meeting, that we have at least a game plan for getting adaptive. I know that we've already talked, you and I and Jason talked about adaptive play areas in 3 different parks, I believe. Is that correct, Jason? Is there we can start to think about accelerating that a little bit, just to even get like one or two areas in those parks to start the ball rolling on getting adaptive play.
And that's what
addressed?
that is the information we're seeking right now.
I mean,
is seeing what other agencies have done that, because it's not as easy as just throwing something in there. We have to look at accessibility. We have to look at fall rates. We have to look at borders. There's a lot of components that go into it. So, and that's, looking at what has the school district done and what have these other agencies done. So that's the information I'm trying to gather and definitely follow.
And also sensory challenged areas as well, not just the physical side, but also those that are sensory impaired or sensory challenged, visual impaired, hearing impaired, because that is also obviously part of that. So
Part of the challenge that we've run into is the design and how to approach design. So, like you said, all those different things. If you bring in, if you just sit down a group of people for the community, you're going to have 100 different things that they want. So, what we're looking at is exploring a design build where somebody comes in and says, these are the things. Even if we do 3 separate, different units, these are the things that we want to start with under our budget. Then bring it to a group of people, and then they can work on, okay, we're going to trade this for this, or we're going to move this over here. So it's got to be a collective effort while still trying to get public input, but we have to start somewhere. And if we start from ground zero without a plan, or without some template, then it's going to take forever.
Okay.
So what we're working on is a timeline, so that we have a baseline, so that everybody knows what the expectation is. And if we miss the expectation that it's somewhere on our course, then we'll know what it was. We can adjust that, like a Gantt chart, if you're familiar with that. So we can look at it and establish a timeline, so that as we're moving forward, everybody kind of knows where we're at in the process.
Can we look to potentially have, at some point in the next 2 months, a joint meeting of the Parks and Public Works Accessibility Committees to start drilling down as to exactly what the infrastructure needs might be once we get that information from our other jurisdictions? What the infrastructure needs would be, what would be the potential challenges around our existing parks infrastructure in terms of getting something in, and basically having something concrete to present to the community, especially our advocates in the disability community, sometime before the end of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, we really need to get that done. We had been talking about this for several years. I was part of the ADA committee way back before it got moved into Public Works and Accessibility. But I think that a good joint meeting of the Parks and Public Works committees, Accessibility Committee, would go a long way towards at least giving the community a correct set of expectations as to what's gonna happen and how.
Yeah, I want to be well into this by the end.
Okay, all right.
I would not have the first meeting be a joint meeting though, because they're looking at two different things.
Well, yes.
So accessibility, I think you should be focusing on accessibility, regardless if it's for a park or not. And parks should be looking at parks, not just for accessibility issues. So it'd be interesting to hear both sides come with differing opinions potentially.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I said next 2 months. So, you know, have our Public Works Committee meet for, you know, to look at some of those items that are coming from the other jurisdictions. Have the Parks Committee come in to start looking at, I know that we are well into, have we completed our Parks Master Plan for the next 10 years? Or no? We have not done that yet. Okay, so they're gonna be fine, they're gonna be working on that in the next couple of months, correct, Jason?
It's already in the works.
Yeah, so, but I mean, they're gonna be meeting, I'm talking about the committee meetings.
Part of the committee is involved in that. That's not a full committee for the Parks Committee. But yes, it's well in the works, and the guidance that you all have provided recently in terms of budget, putting in the accessible playgrounds was a massive capital investment.
I understand that.
So
Yeah.
in order to move forward with the Parks Master Plan, we needed to know if we were moving forward with those or not, because that kind of changes the course of parks for years to come. I did want to add that the Public Works and Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to be held on July 25th, one of the discussion items is already parks accessibility.
Okay, great. So then after those two committees meet and review that data, then we can have a joint meeting after that, correct? Maybe sometime September-ish timeframe? Would that be fair?
That's still a ways.
I think you wait and see what he
because
comes back with and what that meeting says. And
Okay, I mean, I'm fine, I just want to keep it on the front burner here.
Will be. Yeah, I would like to have that data gathered before our advisory committee met.
Okay, all right.
I don't think it'll get dropped. I know Amy, I brought this up last October, and she specifically, I spoke with her about incorporating this into the new master plan, and she's working on it. So.
Absolutely, and it has been one of the larger delays on that, and that's a good thing, because it's morphed from let's add these components to parks to let's do something really big and meaningful.
Which will help us for the next
Great.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. As long as we know that the ball's rolling and we can give the public a realistic expectation of when it's going to be addressed. So they're not wondering why it hasn't been. Okay. All right. That's all I have. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Council President.
I've jumped in on everybody else, and I'm good.
I'm good as well. I've got nothing. So, moving to, we do have an executive session item this evening. Was there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we recess into executive session to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege related to annexation boundary agreements pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2, beginning at 8:13, returning to regular session at 8:33 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Executive session. All right, it is 8:33. We'll resume, or is there a motion to resume regular session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Shoot, we resume regular session. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Now we're back. Is there a motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn?
So
That's
moved.
the word, yes. Motion Shoot.
I don't even know what happened there, so.
Second Deaton, that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?